Good morning, everyone. Welcome to First Jefferson Unitarian Universalist Church. I have about half a dozen opportunities to say those words on a Sunday morning before we have to learn a new way of introducing this gathering. But for now, I'm Annie Furster, minister to the congregation known by that name.
And welcome from me as well, Michael Zepeda, co-celebrant for this morning's service. Reverend Annie, I understand that your sermon is on wisdom this morning.
That's right.
Can you give me any words of wisdom I might be able to use this coming days?
Sure, I'll give it a try. How's this? Remember that if you lose one sock in your washing machine, it will come back to you as a Tupperware lid that does not fit any of your containers.
Oh, that's good. That's a good one. Do you have any others?
I do. I'm full of wisdom this morning. I don't want to give away the whole service, but how about this? If you want to maintain your reputation as a bon vivant, when someone asks what you did over the weekend, you just look at them, squint, and smile a little and say, "Why? What did you hear?"
Good.
And how about this? If you want to appear to have an exciting life, when a stranger sits down next to you in a public place, just stare straight ahead and say, "Did you bring the money?"
There. That alone has changed my life. You are indeed a wise person.
Yep. I got them off the internet when I Googled wisdom. But what's happening in real life, in church life?
Well, we're getting another chance to add new suggestions to the What Shall We Name Ourselves list. You'll find an insert, a ballot in your order of service. Please fill that out if you think of something that's not on the list. You will also find a message from Equality Texas inside the insert. This is information from Equality Texas for those caring for a transgender child and how you might respond to the governor's letter that was released earlier this week that's fairly repressive. So we ask all of you, whether or not you're directly affected, to read through this information because it's crucial to know.
Yes. Thank you. Well, I think the wisest thing to do now would be to start the service with a prelude by our pianist Misha Bresnev, and this morning he's playing Fasil Say's Dove. He's a Turkish pianist, and I can't read the rest of his writing. Okay. And a composer. Okay, thank you. Dove. Well, I have to say that I do not know that composer, but I'm glad you do. Another reason to come to church, to learn new music. Our call to worship this morning was written by Susan Zahusky.
Day by day, month by month, year by year, we are confronted with all that we do not know, that we do not understand, that we do not grasp.
Sometimes we are humbled by this knowledge and say, Spirit of life and love, it is too wonderful for me to comprehend, but I know this universe is more grand and more beautiful than I ever could have imagined, and I give thanks for the blessing of being here and seeing, hearing, experiencing, and sensing all that is so wonderful around and in me.
Sometimes we are saddened by the knowledge and say, "O merciful Spirit, we need to have the burden of hurt and suffering removed from us. Grant us the courage, the wisdom, and fortitude to bear the pain of living. Send us those who will carry our burdens for a short while, and send us those who will comfort us with their healing words and thoughts."
And sometimes we are angered by this knowledge and say, in the name of justice and compassion, if it be in our power, give us the strength and ability to right the wrongs for what we need to do, help any person in the world deserve this.
Sometimes we are made joyous by this knowledge, and we say, "Spirit of life, who blesses our world, we rejoice and cheer for our glorious life."
Sometimes we are made curious by this knowledge and say, "Holy and inexplicable is this life. I have no idea what happened or how it happened, but somehow, some way, something changed and I am free to explore new ways of being. Please always let me continue to search for the unknown in myself and in others." Please join me in singing our opening hymn. It's number 128 in the hymnal, but the words will be on the screen. For all that is our life. Please stand as you're willing and able. I don't think there's a candle. You're going to need that. In sightless night, terrors draw near, nameless fears of talon and tooth. Homelessness yawns before us, an abyss, alone and unknown in the gloom, longing for the dawn of sacred flame, blaze forth, wisdom brought to life.
Guide us with the light of hope and the warmth of love, the beacon of purpose and meaning.
Because we are all afraid of the dark, let there be light. Michael, will you lead us in the affirmation?
Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve others in community, to the end that all shall grow into harmony with creation. Thus do we covenant with one another. Please be seated. I have something this morning. Michael, you can sit down because we're going to use your pulpit in a minute. We have created something new this morning. It's not in your order of service, and I am happy to bring you a new light for our Sunday mornings, and this is Light on Youth. And Eliza Thornton has agreed to be our first youth featured in this. So Eliza, to give you a little introduction, is in 6th grade at Uplift Summit International Preparatory. That's a name almost as long as our church name. She has made straight A's all year. Congratulations. The NBC, yes, a little applause there. When NBC5 News did a feature on her school's library, the librarian chose Eliza to talk to the interviewer because she is so confident. And you can take off your mask so people can hear you.
Well, like she said, I'm Eliza Thornton, and here at church, I do a lot of volunteer work, most notably in the nursery and at the tech desk. I like to help in the nursery because I want to be a preschool teacher when I grow up. And I like helping with the tech desk because if we didn't do that, then we wouldn't be able to do a lot of the other things that we do at church. And I'm thankful for all the opportunities that church gives me. Thank you. That is all.
Wasn't that a brilliant idea? Yes, we have lots of interesting young people in this church, and we don't always know very much about them. So let me ask you the questions that I'm going to try to respond to this morning. As Michael said, we're doing a service on wisdom, and my first question is, what is wisdom? The second would be, do I have it? And the third then would be, well, how do I get it? So while you're thinking about that, let's have a story for all ages, and I invite the children to come up and sit on the steps with me. Find a way to get down here. All right. Good morning. How are you all? You can hear me breathing, so I need to adjust my microphone. Good morning. You're looking good and wise. Who says children can't be wise, right? Yeah. So anyway, this is a story called Who is Right? Once there was a wise woman named Athanerva. Actually, this is a blend of the names Athena and Minerva, who were the same goddess, and supposedly both very wise. Athanerva would travel from town to town in her country, spending a few days, maybe even a week, in each town. And people would come to her with their difficult problems or arguments that they were having with others, and she would help them find their way toward satisfying answers. One day when she entered one of the towns on her route, Athanerva heard a lot of arguing. She looked and saw a group of people in a very heated discussion. One person called out, "Athanerva, come here, we need your wisdom." And Athanerva approached the group, and the person who had called to her said, "I've been telling people who God is, and they keep saying I'm wrong, and I'm worried about them. Help them see what's right." "Well," said Athanerva, "what have you told them?" I told them that there is only one true God who loves and cares for us, hears our prayers, and commands us to love one another. And Athanasius said, well, you're absolutely correct. What? Said one of the others. No, that can't be right. Then one of them said, I believe there's a God, all right, a God who created this whole thing, this universe, established the laws governing it, set it going, and then left. God has no interest in the affairs of humanity. It's up to us to make this world the place we want it to be. And Athanasius said, you are correct. And then a third person said, I believe there are many gods and goddesses, and they are part of my worship of all nature and the whole cycle of life. And Athanasius said, and you may not be surprised at this, she said, you are correct. I'm not at all sure there is a God, said a fourth person. I see a divine spark in everything and everybody, but maybe it's just part of the human consciousness. And Athanasius said, yes, you are correct. And finally one person said, I don't believe there's a God at all, but I'm truly awestruck when I think about the mystery of the creation of our universe and how we came to be, and I believe it's my responsibility to leave my corner of the world as I found it, or better. And Athanasius said, and you are correct. And at this point, everyone was confused. But how, they said, can we all be correct when we all have different ideas of what God is or isn't? Yes, she said, you all have different visions, but each of those visions can lead to you to love and to care for each other and this wonderful part of creation that we call Earth. And that is the correct vision, however you label it. And as Athanasius left, the people in that group agreed that they didn't need to argue about who was right. They needed to work together to make the world that they wanted. Sounds like they were creating a Unitarian Universalist church, doesn't it? Yeah, that's what we keep saying every Sunday. All of that. You are correct. Yes. I enjoyed your being here this morning. And let us, if you're going to go back to the nursery, or if you're going to stay, let us sing you away from the chancel steps.
This congregation, by whatever name it may be called, is precious to us for the gifts of friendships, caring, and compassion. Gifts of caring and compassion it offers each of us. It is also known for its generosity in the community and within its circle of friends. We take a morning offering each Sunday, not because we must, but because we can. In some places with state-named churches, all such offerings would go to the official church. But early in this country's history, we won the freedom to share our time and treasures with the church of our choice. This month, we are splitting the free offering to rebuild our playground for the safety of our children and the children currently enrolled in the Sudbury School that operates here during the week. As the greeters pass among you, please be generous.
I understand that Misha has been busy this week making other people besides us happy with his musical talent, and that's why the music is not in your order of service, but I know what that piece was. It was written by Alberto Hinastera and called Argentinian Dance Number 2. Thank you, Misha. So what is wisdom? Well, from 1980 through 1982, I was enrolled in a Doctor of Psychology degree program at the University of Virginia in Charlottesville. It was a lovely campus. The grounds are laid out the way the original students had walked through the quad from building to building. There were no sidewalks of intimidating straightness, but meandering paths worn permanent by wandering feet. There were no signs on the buildings then. I haven't been back since to see if they've been added. It was said that Thomas Jefferson suggested this to encourage conversation among students who would find it necessary to ask, for instance, where is the science building? The classes were satisfyingly difficult and the professors adequately learned. My plan was to be a research psychologist. My goal was to define creativity, something that had long been a joyful mystery to me. Now, what made some people creative in everything they did, and others in a specialty, and the rest, not so much at all? I felt I had discovered the thread that would unravel this mystery in the topic of play when I learned that the majority of people were their most creative during childhood, when play demanded make-believe and developing rules of the game on the spot as it progressed. And conversely, adult play is congested by hard, fast rules, overseen by referees and umpires and linesmen and arbitrators and books like the famous Hoyle's Rules of Games. No one claimed that this switch made adults less creative, but I thought I saw a pattern emerging that I might be able to penetrate and thereby discover a way to make all people better equipped to play the game of creativity. The problem was that no one was studying creativity in this country, anywhere. It didn't become a viable research issue until about 5 years after I abandoned psychology for religion. My thesis advisor told me I couldn't study creativity. What's more, I couldn't study a field so broad as childhood play versus adult play. I would have to choose one or the other and leave creativity out of the whole thing. Narrow your sights, I was told. Hone in on the topic. Well, I knew from experience that that was one of the ways that creativity was discouraged, destroyed. And now, today, there are hundreds of books on how to become more creative, and none of them have my name on them. But I don't look back. Why I tell you this is because wisdom, the study of wisdom, seems to have had the same kind of reception in academia. No one thought it could be studied, and then suddenly everyone is studying it. Last year, the Just Thomas Wisdom Index was published and blew the lid off the box. But others have been working on the topic for at least the last 10 years as well. They don't all agree on what wisdom is, but then neither do the researchers of creativity. But there is a certain confluence of opinion that I find rather exciting, while at the same time feeling very familiar. Now, you can read the studies and say to yourself, well, yes, of course. I've thought that all along. It's that kind of simpleness that we think we know what it is, and yet we don't define it. There are even tests you can take to see your own level of wisdom. But I think the more exciting journey is to look at the research to see how the growth of wisdom in the human animal is developed. And I'll talk more about that in a moment, but I do have to give you a caveat about the reliability of these tests. You see, I scored a 4.75 out of 5 in the Just Wisdom Index, and I question its validity on that point alone. I've always been good at taking tests, however, having the ability to see beneath the questions as to how they were constructed to form the test, and so I answer accordingly. I pin my score on that ability because I alone know what unwise decisions I have made in life that I have buried from my public history. But still, it's fun and flattering, and I think you will want to know more about the studies and perhaps take the test yourself. At any rate, I don't think it will spoil things for you if I tell you that a large part of wisdom is being in connection with other people. Just as it says in hymn number 1021, Lean on Me. So why don't we just pause here and sing that? 1021 in your green hymnal, teal hymnal. Thank you.
Wait, is my voice still carrying? Okay. Cherish your doubts, for doubt is the servant of truth. Question your convictions, for beliefs too tightly held strangle the mind and its natural wisdom. Suspect all certitudes, for the world whirls on and nothing abides. Yet in our inner rooms, full of doubt, inquiry, and suspicion, let a corner be reserved for trust. For without trust, there is no space for communities to gather or for friendships to be forged. Indeed, this is the small corner where we connect and reconnect with each other.
Thank you. Do I have it? Well, last Sunday, somebody handed me an envelope, and I don't remember who it was, though I can guess between two people who might have. You may not have noticed, but on Sundays, I am so intent on what I am responsible for, I cannot be held reliable to remember anything else until after the service is over. And even then, I'm a bit dim for a while, and my memories of that time are often faulty or non-existent. So thank you, whoever you are. Now, when I wrote that, I had not verified who it was, and I asked the two people that I had in mind, so thank you, Paul. The envelope contained an article titled Bonhoeffer on Stupidity. Friedrich Bonhoeffer was a Lutheran minister in Germany during World War II who wrote eloquently about religious ideas as they related to everyday topics. As someone who disagreed with the philosophies and outrages of Hitler, he was beleaguered, and when he published and eventually escaped to America, but he felt his place was with his people, and he ultimately returned to Germany, was imprisoned in an internment camp, and hung just 2 months before the war was over. I think his comments on stupidity worthy of consideration in this study of its complete opposite wisdom. And here is some of what he had to say. Stupidity is a more dangerous enemy of the good than malice. One may protest against evil. It can be exposed and, if need be, prevented by the use of force. Evil always carries within itself the germ of its own subversion, in that it leaves behind in human beings at least a sense of unease. Against stupidity, we are defenseless. Neither protest nor the use of force accomplish anything here. Reason falls on deaf ears. Facts that contradict one's prejudgment simply need not be believed. In such moments, the stupid person even becomes critical. And when facts are irrefutable, they are just pushed aside as inconsequential, as incidental. In all this, the stupid person, in contrast to the malicious one, is utterly self-satisfied, and being easily irritated becomes dangerous by going on the attack. For that reason, greater caution is called for than with a malicious person. Never again will we try to persuade the stupid person with reason, for it is senseless and dangerous. So are you like me, ready to say this must be true because it's still applicable to this day, some 80 years later from when this was written? Are you thinking, I know just the people he's talking about? Yeah. I don't know if anyone is studying stupidity for their doctoral thesis, but I do know that some of the studies of wisdom have something to say about that, which sounds very close to Bonhoeffer's comments. In her 2014 paper titled The Science of Older and Wiser, Phyllis Corky wrote, "Wisdom is characterized by a reduction in self-centeredness. Wise people try to understand situations from multiple perspectives, not just their own, and they show tolerance as a result." She went on to say, there's evidence that people who rank high in neuroticism are unlikely to be wise. No, this was not Corky's. This was Laura. Wait a minute, I've lost her. This was Laura Cardiston, a psychology professor and founding director of the Stanford Center on Longevity in California. She wrote, they see things in a self-centered and negative way, and so they fail to benefit emotionally from their experience, even though they may be very intelligent. So intelligent and wisdom, not the same. Bonhoeffer agreed. Stupid people, he said, are not unintelligent. They are merely human. And he said it is not a congenital defect, but a sociological one. Think about that. Every strong upsurge of power in the public sphere, he wrote, be it of a political or of a religious nature, infects a large part of humankind with stupidity. It seems that under the overwhelming impact of rising power, humans are deprived of their inner independence and more or less consciously give up establishing an autonomous position toward the emerging circumstances. In other words, it's easier not to think for yourself when others disagree with you. Bonhoeffer goes on to say that arguments will fail against stupidity. Only external liberation from the influencing power will be followed by an internal liberation from their stupidity. As a Lutheran pastor, he quoted his solution from the Bible that the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom, in which people will live the responsible life. I don't think you have to believe in his God to understand that wisdom depends on independent thinking and the courage to take it up. If you are wise, Professor Cardenston said, you're not only regulating your emotional state, you're also attending to the other person's emotional states. She added, you're not focusing so much on what you need and deserve, but on what you can contribute. Daniel Goleman, author of Focus and Emotional Intelligence, said, one aspect of wisdom is having a very wide horizon which doesn't center on ourselves or even on our group or our organization. As Unitarian Universalists, we continue to teach that we need to pay attention to our own emotional, intellectual, and social intelligence throughout our lives, but we need to include in our growth these conditions: empathy and compassion for and understanding of people who do not agree with us. The very fact that we have hit upon this teaching as part of our principles indicates that, yes, you may possibly pass the test of wisdom with high marks. And more on that in a moment. Every Sunday, we take a moment to tell the stories of life that's lived among us in this community. And we have a book we call A Communion of Names and Milestones, in which we can share our stories every Sunday. I have quite a few stories today. And this is that Roy Redman had a birthday in the last week, and because it didn't fall on a Sunday, he avoids the embarrassment of having us sing to him as we did last week. And somebody wrote, I don't see a name here, remember that World War I began because of a conflict between Serbia and Austria, while World War II started when Germany attacked Poland. Could World War III be starting now? Pray for the people of Ukraine. That is such a wise statement, because anything is possible with this terrible conflict that's going on now. And Paul Chapman wrote, if you missed the Saturday Night Live opening last night, you missed a performance by the Ukrainian chorus. We can go back and look at that probably. Find it and listen to some of their gorgeous, soul-stirring vocals. Thank you, Paul, for that information. And Joe Burnham writes, thank you for your thoughts and prayers for my sister Lisa Shaw. She is at home now and recovering. And finally, please remember John Brannigan, uncle of Virginia Thornton, and one of the kindest souls. He died yesterday. We are so sorry for your loss, Virginia. Let us take a moment to consider the stories that live in this community, whether they are spoken aloud or just shared heart to heart. Take a moment, if you would like, to light a candle at the meditation table or any time during the service. I do have a spoken meditation today, but let us, before I begin that, take a moment just to consider the stories we heard this morning and how important they are to all of us. This meditation is titled Litany for Becoming. To become is a lifelong process. Nothing is constant, not even the self. We evolve in the midst of narratives meant only for some and ways of being made narrow by fear and power. We must then have the courage to listen to the truth of our own lives, to the wisdom that comes from within, responding without resistance or need to control, but with welcome and curiosity. This is what ensures our becoming as an unfolding of our truest self. This lifelong labor cannot be carried out alone. It requires help from friends and lovers, family, and creaturely companions who bear witness to what makes us come alive and say to us, listen, look, feel, pay attention to that what makes us come alive. To some, for the first time, we say, this is who I am. This is the truth of my body. This is what I know about myself. This is my name, and this is where my path is leading me. And to have it heard, have it received, have it affirmed. And then again, to say it again and again as we change and as the world changes, and to have each proclamation greeted with an open-armed embrace. There is no me without you. We shape one another. The sacred that birthed us weaves our lives together so that we can only find ourselves through shared becoming. For my journey and all its winding ways, for yours, for all the saints who labored for what is, and all the kin whose lives made ours possible. For all those yet to come, for whom living our truths today will mean breaking possibilities open for them tomorrow. We pause. We give thanks. We acknowledge. Amen. So how do I get wisdom? Well, it turns out that wisdom is a process, if I'm reading the literature correctly. It doesn't come to us automatically with experience or age. It has to be processed from both our successes and our failures, from our certainties and our doubts. It has to come from examining our own lives and then from exploring the lives of others with others. The Just Thomas Index Test considers many areas of life to be important in developing wisdom. You will see that I have put the name of this test in the order of service at the bottom so that you might take it on your own and read more about how to achieve wisdom from this study's point of view. But for now, let me list the areas of experience and learning suggested in this particular study. I'm trying to remember. I think it came out of the University of San Diego. The first thing on their list is acceptance of divergent perspectives. That is very important in gaining wisdom. We speak here of diversity and of unity through diversity. Well, the Just Thomas test measures acceptance of other value systems and interest in learning other people's perspectives. It assesses our openness to and our comfort with values and perspectives that may be different from our own. Knowledge of diversity is important. The next one is decisiveness. Decisiveness measures your ability to make decisions in a timely manner. It also assesses your comfort with decision making. Now, this is where I have some hesitancy in believing this model. According to Myers-Briggs, I tend to make decisions quickly and often loudly until I discover I am not right. But I have learned to be adept at changing my decisions, and I scored a perfect 5 in this area when I took the test. So I'm just saying. The third item on the Just Thomas list is emotional regulation. Interesting. That measures the ability to regulate negative emotions that interfere with decision making. It assesses your sense of being able to effectively manage both negative emotions and their inherent emotional stress on you. Think about that. People that don't manage their negative emotions are often found to be shouting or punching or something that does not allow you to think clearly. The next one on the list is pro-social behaviors, and this includes empathy, compassion, altruism, and a sense of fairness. This, they say, is part of wisdom. Big values there, words we often call upon in assessing our way forward or through a difficult situation. In this test, it assesses your sense of the ability to maintain positive social connections with others, whether they agree with you or not, as well as compassion and conscientious behavior. Now, the self is not left out of the scale of wisdom. We've talked about, sharing your thoughts with other people. But the self is included. Self-reflection measures your desire and ability to understand yourself and your actions at a deeper level. The unreflected life is not worth living, something like that from the Greeks. It assesses your preference with regard to understanding your own thoughts, your motivations, and your behaviors. And finally, we come to what we do with all of this understanding, and that is called social advising. The ability to give good advice to others. I think we all like to give advice. Oh, I know the answer to that. Here's what you should do. And not like Athanerva, who said, and you're correct. But it also assesses your comfort in advising others. It seems you have to feel wise, to act wisely, or to share your wisdom. And finally, the last aspect of wisdom, according to Jess Thomas, has to do with spirituality. I never would have included that on my own in a list of wisdom. But they say spirituality depends upon your connectedness with yourself, with nature, or with the transcendent, things that can't be held in the hand, but which exist as an essence about us. Transcendentalists again, we got there. The test assesses your sense of spiritual connectedness with other people, the world itself and everything in it, as well as a sense of transcendent spiritual connected. And didn't both Emerson and Thoreau make those same claims? They must have been very wise men. I mentioned before that there are at least 5 universities in the United States that have recently put out papers with assessments of wisdom. Not surprisingly, perhaps, they do not all agree with what it is. But overall, I get the sense that they are exploring similar human behaviors based on the same scales of individual human evolution and understanding. What I took from these various studies was a sense of hope. The development of a theory that might begin with childhood education. Not a theory that says, learn this, it's the only truth, but one that encouraged self-reflection, the benefits of exploring failures as well as successes, the importance of social connections with others outside your tribe definitions, and the open-endedness of human experience that demands continuous exploration and learning. Humanity has displayed so many strengths over the millennia of its development: wisdom, creativity, deep understanding of human nature, the necessity of social interaction. But sad to say, it has also displayed so many weaknesses: anger and lack of forgiveness, bullying, revenge, holding grudges, dictatorships, wars, hate crimes. Sometimes the scale tips to the side of wisdom, but so often and right next door it is weighed down with stupidity. And when you stop to consider this, hope is sometimes hard to find. But as one wise person put it doesn't matter if the glass is half full or half empty. It matters what's in the glass. Maybe for the sake of the world, it be the champagne of wisdom more often than the intoxicating liquor of stupidity. And light. Let there be light. Let us sing number 142 in our hymn book as we close this service. Let there be light. Well, we lit our chalice this morning First, the stories that live within this community that we take home with us. But we lit our chalice this morning to banish the dark so that we need not be afraid, so that we could see one another's smiling faces and proceed with life bravely. We take that light with us in our hearts as we go from one another this morning. Sam Trumborn, the Reverend Sam Trumborn, said, "Go forth in simplicity. Find and walk the path that leads to compassion and wisdom, that leads to happiness, to peace, and to ease. Welcome the stranger and open your heart to a world in need of healing. Be courageous before the forces of hate. Hold and embody a vision of the common good that serves the needs of all people. So may it be in all our lives." Please join us now in the library for coffee and conversation.